Good morning. This is David Bennett, and this is Bitcoin And, a podcast where I try to find the edge effect between the worlds of Bitcoin, gaming, permaculture, podcasting, and education to gain a better understanding of all. Edge effect is a concept from ecology describing a greater diversity of life where the edges of two systems overlap. While species from either system can be found at the edge, it is important to note there are species in the overlap that exist in neither system, and that is what I seek to uncover. So join me in discovering the variety of things being created as Bitcoin rubs up against other systems. It is 9:32 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. It is the 12th day of the 12th month of the year 2024. This is episode 1007 of Bitcoin, and boy, howdy do I've got a manifesto for you guys to listen to. The left is losing their mind, specifically the hardcore, very mainstream media progressive left have figured out something new to latch onto, and its name is Bitcoin. I've got several clips from three different shows, Young Turks, Chris Hayes, and somebody else, and I can't really remember who it is or what show it was on, but it is a high production value mainstream media outfit out of the United States, and all of them are 100% now focused on killing Bitcoin. Why? Because of the Bitcoin bill, the notion of a Bitcoin strategic reserve, and comments made by Michael Saylor to sell gold for Bitcoin, which I do not actually believe is in the Bitcoin bill. If I'm wrong about that, then I am truly, truly sorry. But we're gonna listen to these clips. I've kind of chopped them up into a couple of different. I've got a clip salad for you, so that we're gonna dig in and we're gonna talk about the olive and the pepper and the lettuce and the dressing. Just bear with me. We'll get to it here in a second, but my question for the morning is this. The dude that killed the Health United or United Health CEO comes to find out he's got a manifesto. Can somebody please tell me, when is it that every single murder committed in modern times, under the eyes of the mainstream media, the killer always has a manifesto? This shit's been going on. I think it started with the Unabomber. I'm pretty sure it was Ted Kaczynski that started all this, but I don't know. I've got a sneaky suspicion that half of these quote unquote manifestos are just bullshit. It appears that Luigi Manigione or Manigione or whatever his name is, they've got his manifesto, and of course, you know, I'm sure that the FBI will say that he was an individual who is known to them. I'm sure we will hear that if we haven't already heard that. But let's start. Let's get done with this lunacy about Bitcoin. I am seeing a torrent of what you would consider the progressive side coming out in packs like lemurs. No, lemmings. Lemurs are too smart. They stay up in the trees. Lemmings. They're marching themselves over the cliff. And I want to start with Guy Talks Finance, or otherwise known as Finance Guy on Twitter, who yesterday put up a graphic from May the 6th of this year. All right, that was before summer began, right? Summer began June 21st, 2024. This was May the 6th. He puts up this graphic of who owns the most Bitcoin. And he says in his tweet, does it concern anyone in the Bitcoin community that the United States, MicroStrategy, and China own the most Bitcoin? Can Bitcoin be easily controlled by the government if they own the most of them? And then there's the graphic, which states that MicroStrategy has 214,400 Bitcoin. Again, this guy puts up data from May the 6th. Didn't even try to figure out who owns what now, right? He's got the United States listed at 207,000. That's about right. He's got China at 194,000. No clue about them. But then it comes Germany with 50,000 Bitcoin. Germany doesn't have any Bitcoin because they sold it all. Do you remember that? Germany sold all their Bitcoin. So this guy who has millions of followers on his Twitter account is just so lazy to not even try to do basic research. And so I had to say it. I had to do it. I retweeted it with this line, and it says, "It's still the same shit show on Deadbird." This is on Nostr, by the way. 423,650 Bitcoin. MicroStrategy owns 423,650 Bitcoin. Please do some basic research, dude. That's what I'm talking about. We're starting with people that have massive audiences, and they are coming from a place of pure ignorance, laziness, and they just refuse to understand. And it's not because they want to understand. It's not that they don't think that they don't understand. That has nothing to do with it. They are completely unconcerned with their understanding of Bitcoin. Okay, so what could it possibly be? I think it's a completely concerted effort to destroy the Republican Party, for lack of a better term. And anybody that is not a progressive Democrat, because it's very clear now that all of mainstream media is owned and operated and has the mission to speak the language of only progressive Democrats, not liberal Democrats, not midline Democrats, certainly nothing in the Republican Party. But we're going to start here with the gentleman named Chris Hayes. Now, I don't know if you know who he is, but MSNBC. Who was it? Rachel Maddow is another person. She basically mentored Chris Hayes. So Chris Hayes is sort of like a clone. And I always wondered why they never appear in the same room together, because they look an awful lot alike, but I'm just going to leave that one there. Let's let Chris Hayes describe to us his preliminary thoughts on this issue of the United States government forming a Bitcoin strategic reserve.
So for very understandable reasons, Democrats and Democratic regulators have worked hard to keep crypto, which has been supremely volatile, blocked off from the rest of financial systems, so that if it crashes, it doesn't bring the entire U.S. economy down with it, requiring a bailout. Some rich people holding a lot of crypto disagree with that strategy. They want a bailout, implicit or explicit, if the house of cards comes crashing down. To that end, after Republicans took back the Senate with the help of money from the crypto industry, they now have a plan to return the favor. And I want you to listen to this part, because no one's really talking about this, but the elements of the plot are just there in plain sight.
It's a plot.
Senate Republicans are working on a bill that would transfer billions and billions of dollars of money from the U.S. government, from taxpayers, and hand it over to a handful of big crypto holders.
We got a present for President Donald Trump. Here it is. This is the Bitcoin Reserve Bill.
Yes, the Bitcoin Act from Republican Senator Cynthia Lummis of Wyoming. It would establish a Federal Reserve of Bitcoin. It's truly one of the most audacious schemes I've ever seen in Congress. Here's why. Rich folks who own a lot of crypto have a problem, right? Cryptocurrency, Bitcoin in particular, is a very valuable asset. Single Bitcoin worth over $100,000. Some very, very wealthy people own hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin. David Sachs, for instance, has a lot of crypto. That said, it's not a liquid asset like cash that you can easily spend or invest or use for practical purposes. It has no practical use really outside of a few gimmicks, and it's very useful for criminal cartels.
Oh, of course, criminal cartels. Oh, do tell us more, Chris Hayes, when your complete misunderstanding of everything that we've already debunked nowadays.
So if you're an investor, you're sitting on this speculative asset. You can't actually do anything with it, but it's worth a lot of money. What's more, if you try to sell it all off, right, to get rid of it, the hordes of Bitcoin on the exchanges, that's going to flood the market and tank the price. So what's the solution? They're going to sell it to the U.S. government.
Over 5 years, the United States will assemble 1 million Bitcoin, 5% of the world's supply. And it will be held for a minimum of 20 years and can be used for one purpose: reduce our debt.
Reduce our debt? You can't pay the debt down in Bitcoin. Are you tracking this? Are you tracking what's being planned and announced in person here, right? The U.S. government handing billions of dollars into the pockets of rich crypto holders? The plan is that the Bitcoin Act would have the government sell off some of its gold reserves, you know, the stuff from Fort Knox, and use the money to buy 1 billion Bitcoin. At current market value, that would cost $100 billion.
Well, I didn't see anybody bitching and moaning when we were handing Zelensky hundreds of billions of dollars all the time. It didn't seem to rankle anybody. All the equipment that was purchased, all the money that was used to purchase the equipment, all went to rich industrialist warmongers. Now, talk about Morton Thiokol. Let's talk about Boeing, Lockheed Martin, all of them. There was no scathing remarks about the amount of money being pocketed by these people because Ukraine didn't actually ever get any of that money. No, we gave the money to Lockheed Martin, and Lockheed Martin sent God only knows what secondhand bullshit that they had on hand over so Zelensky could get it blown the fuck up and completely unusable by anybody. But nobody said anything about that now, did they?
Now, the actual price would likely be much higher because that market value would almost certainly rise as a result when a new buyer enters the market and boosts the price of the asset the buyer is now legally obligated to buy. This is an enormous heist. They're just backing the truck up to the government in front of all of us. A massive bailout to the crypto world. The opportunity to turn a speculative asset into real cash on your dime. And presumably David Sachs, as the crypto czar, will help usher that plan through. And there is a real irony here. For a long time, as long as I've been covering crypto, which is over a decade.
Yeah, you have been covering crypto for over a decade, Chris. You barely started talking about it other than just off-the-cuff remarks. You haven't really covered anything in the last 10 years as far as Bitcoin is concerned. But you start seeing, regardless, you start seeing the narrative form. Bitcoin, Trump administration, rich Bitcoiners. They are actually going to come after us. I mean, either just in the news where nobody really cares, or on social media, which nobody really cares about, but possibly even further than that, where we do start to care. But you see the narrative forming. It is forming right before your eyes. Now, one more piece from Chris Hayes before we go into the Young Turks.
Advocates have sold crypto as this libertarian project, right? We don't need government. We don't need banks. We don't need financial intermediaries. We don't need regulation. Here's Sachs himself making that point on a podcast 2 years ago.
There is a huge risk of currency debasement when the government is in control, and particularly when you have the world's reserve currency. There's just such an enormous temptation to print money to finance your budget and to rack up loans that become unpayable. What Bitcoin offers is a different kind of currency where it's not backed by a government, it's backed by math, it's backed by encryption. And so you don't have to trust the government.
All of that lofty rhetoric goes right out the window, though, when Republicans decide they want the government to initiate a massive upward transfer of wealth.
Yeah, again, here we go. It's the Republicans' fault. Yeah, they're tying Bitcoin directly to the hated Republicans. Bitcoin has absolutely no allegiance to Democrats, libertarians, anarchists, agorists, Republicans, Green Party, Black Party, Red Party, Yellow Party. I don't care. It never has had any connection, implicit or explicit, to anything. Now, this shit starts to get worse when we go over to Cenk Younger, or however you pronounce his name, from the Young Turks. And if you don't know who that is, this is a man who I think actually had a heart attack in 2016 when Trump was elected. He was so hurt and so beside himself that he just couldn't. It was almost as if something inside of him broke, and he's never been fixed. But here's Cenk Uygur, Young Turks, talking about, well, you'll figure it out.
Listen, this was one of the best segments Chris Hayes has done, and tremendous credit to him. Nice job, Chris. So,
nice job. Nice job, Chris.
This is a robbery, and we have to stop it. So, and there could be a huge difference between right-wing leaders and right-wing voters. And so we'll see how that plays out. But let me keep explaining why this is a disastrous idea. First of all, as Anna pointed out, their excuse for, this is going to help us pay down the debt is totally and utterly nonsensical. We have to take money out of all of our pockets, $100 billion worth, to buy crypto for the government. And who are they going to buy it from? The people who currently hold lots of crypto. And you're going to be shocked to find out, my guess is that the first people who cash out are donors to Donald Trump.
Of course. See, this is the way that this shit goes, right? You can just see it. You see it forming right in front of you. And we really do need to be careful with these people because they're not dead yet. I'll get to that here in a little bit on down the line, but just understand, it is a completely predictable narrative that's being formed across all of these platforms, but it's being spun up real quick, and they're going hard into the paint. I mean, hard into the paint. Okay?
Because they're holding giant amounts of crypto, and as Chris explained there, selling it is really problematic because once you start selling it, it starts deflating. So the more you sell, the more it deflates in value. Mm-hmm. And so they've got to find a way to sell a significant amount of crypto. We're not talking about the average crypto holder, right? You guys are going to be left holding the bag anyway. We're talking about the big guys here. So if on the other hand, the government comes and gives them this giant gift of, I will buy $100 billion of your crypto, number one, they're going to get to cash out in a way that they couldn't before and turn their fake money into real money. And then secondly, when the government says we're going to buy $100 billion of crypto, you know what happens? The crypto price goes up. Now again, if you're holding crypto, maybe you take advantage and then you dump it right at the same time if you can, right? But if you don't dump it there, it's going to crash later because it was artificially inflated by the government buying $100 billion worth of crypto for no reason.
Yep.
And the bottom line of it, and the most important part, guys, is they're taking our money, taxpayer money, and giving it to the crypto guys.
And for the third time, nobody seemed to care that we were giving packages of 25, 50, 75, $100 billion directly to people that manufacture weapons of war so they could send second-hand, third-hand goods over to Ukraine, which gave the Ukrainian men and women an excuse to go die for their fucking country, which has been nothing but a money laundering scheme for decades. Right? But nobody said anything about that $100 billion or $200 billion or $3. I've lost track of just how much money we've sent to Ukraine that these guys have never cried about.
And if you wanted to pay down the debt, how much sense does it make to add $100 billion in debt, and then say, but don't worry, we might or might not use it to pay down the debt 20 years from now?
They think we're stupid.
They might as well call it, we think you're stupid, Bill.
No, you are stupid because you don't understand the mechanism of how this actually is supposed to work. We have a 16-year track record of watching what this thing does. We've got good data, right? And most of the swings to the upside were driven not by, quote unquote, the institutions coming. It was driven by mostly retail, right? Now, the FTX did cause a lot of problems. The FTX debacle did cause a lot of problems because it did get a lot of retail users to give them their money. We've seen scams before. There have been scams ever since time began, right? There's nothing new is under the sun here. Yet they're couching this in two different ways. First of all, he keeps saying crypto. It's not about buying shitcoin number 1 through shitcoin number 5,500,209. This is about buying Bitcoin. So he's got that wrong clearly. But if you look at the track record, we very well may be able to peel off a tenth of the Bitcoin reserves in 20 years from now and be done with the debt. Okay, I'm going to say it right here. I honestly don't think that the getting Bitcoin to pay the debt as its only purpose, I don't think that's a high quality idea. I really think that they're locking themselves in the box when they say, Cynthia Lummis said it's only got one purpose. The strategic Bitcoin reserve has only one purpose, and that's to pay down the debt. I kind of think that's a little dumb because it's short-sighted. It doesn't show it's not an expansive idea. And so even Cynthia Lummis does. I'm not going to say she doesn't know what she's talking about. I'm just saying that I think even these guys are missing the boat. Everybody has not figured this shit out yet. Let me liken it to this way. There's a million reasons that I could write down on a piece of paper for why you should hold Bitcoin, and paying off your debt could be one of them. But what you really want Bitcoin for is for the 10 trillion reasons I can't think of as to why you would need it. That's where I'm coming from, and none of these people get it. Now, this last one is the one that I don't know where it comes from. I don't know who this is, but it is a high production value mainstream media outfit in the United States along the lines of CNN, CNBC, MSNBC, and the like.
Please pay attention to this. I know you want to tune out, but please don't. They plan to propose a bill that would sell off some of the Federal Reserve's gold to buy Bitcoin. Watch this.
Have we got a present for President Donald Trump?
Well, Cynthia Lummis, you can take that bill and sit down with me any night of the week, and I would love to go through every word, every paragraph, every page. But I'd first like to know how much the crypto industry has given you, because for fact's sake, you cannot pay debt down with Bitcoin. If Bitcoin crosses the $100,000 mark, like it did last week, that means it would cost the government at least $100 billion.
And for the fourth time, nobody has mentioned anything at all about the eye-watering amounts of money that we sent over to Ukraine. Actually, we didn't send it to Ukraine, did we? We sent it to the people manufacturing the goods and services that it was going to take to purchase and find military type stuff to send over to Ukraine, which all got blown up and facilitated the deaths of enough people in Ukraine so they can't have babies.
And former SEC official John Reed was on 60 Minutes last night to sound the alarm about just how dangerous this industry is.
Crypto is a scourge. It's not something that you want in your society. It has no utility. It's just pure speculation. Remember, there's no balance sheet to crypto. There's no financial statements. Every single crime you can conceive of is easier to do now because of crypto, especially ransomware, human sex trafficking, sanctions evasion, money laundering. North Korea is financing their nuclear weapons program using crypto.
No, they're not. All of that has been debunked time and time again, and they are still chewing the same fat. So it's the story is the same, but what's happening is they're boiling it down. It's like making a great big pot of stock, right? And you boil it down so that you can concentrate the flavors, you can concentrate the nutrition, and get rid of some of the fluff, some of the actual water that's not going to do anything for you. And that's what's going on here. They're recompiling every single thing that we've already debunked on several different occasions, but they have found the tie that they need to remain somewhat relevant on television, on radio, on social media, in magazines, and that's to tie Bitcoin to the Republican Party and make a mockery of both using what we've already debunked about Bitcoin. No, North Korea is not financing their nuclear program with Bitcoin. The amount of crime being committed or facilitated by using Bitcoin is almost non-existent. We've known that for a long time. In the balance sheet, no, my full Bitcoin node is the balance sheet. I know exactly how much Bitcoin there is. And my full node can tell me exactly where all of it went. I know all of the addresses. I know where every single UTXO went. I know when it was sent. I know when it was received. I know what miner mined that block. I know more about what's going on in Bitcoin than anybody in the United States government knows about what's going on with our own fucking economy. The whole thing is ridiculous, but you know what? Let's continue.
Every crime you can think of is exponentially easier because of crypto. Here to discuss, Zeke Fox, investigative reporter for Bloomberg Businessweek and Bloomberg News. He is the author of Number Go Up, Inside Crypto's Wild Rise and Staggering Fall. Dan Nathan's still with us. I don't even want to say this would be the biggest bailout to crypto ever, because they don't need a bailout. They're not in trouble. This would be the biggest bonus boon right there before our eyes, transferring billions of dollars to an industry we know almost nothing about, that's packed with money laundering and bad deeds.
I mean, it's wild. People are mad right now about the health insurance industry's profits. That's $100 billion. That's a couple of years of the entire industry's profits that would be spent buying Bitcoins from people who already have them. And it is a kind of a bailout. I mean, Bitcoin's been around for 15 years. It hasn't delivered on any of its promises. It's as old as Uber, as old as WhatsApp, but nobody's really using it for anything. Now, they've given Trump a lot of money. They've got him talking about coming in and having the government spend huge money to pump the price up even further. It's really wild.
Well, it has delivered on something. It's a trading vessel for people who have made a ton of money and lost, but who've made.
Well, it's delivered on one important thing. It is a store of value, not too different than gold, right? So it's up 30,000% in the last 10 years. There's very few other assets on the planet have done that. Maybe NVIDIA, they're the ones that make the high-end GPUs that power generative AI. So when I think about what's going on here, it's a $2 trillion market cap. It's not going away. And if you think about why it's gone up of late, is because of the promise of deregulation, the leaning in. And I'll just say this, if you think MAGA movement is a strong political movement, just wait until you see these Bitcoiners. This is like one of the strongest financial religious movements that I've ever seen as long as I've been in the business for nearly 30 years. So
religious movement, one of the strongest religious movements. Now that guy is, there's two gentlemen and this one lady that's on that's talking right here. The one guy, the first guy that started talking, clearly hates Bitcoin, doesn't understand it, brings out all the old tropes. The second guy's the good cop. This is a good cop, classic good cop, bad cop thing, and you'll get more here in a second on that. But this second dude, he actually has most of his shit right, but he's going to start talking. He's going to say a couple things here in the next segments that make you go, wait a minute, whose side are you on? And he's on the good cop, bad cop side. I'm just saying. So watch out for these people, okay?
It's here to stay, and maybe some new regulation will kind of help. And the last thing I'll just say, Zeke, when you think about this, I know you did a lot of work on this. Some of the smartest people that I know in finance and in tech believe in this, and they believe in the technology that's underlying it.
Okay,
it doesn't mean that the government.
Now, again, this is also correct. What he's saying is also correct. And I agree. Some of the smartest, brightest, freshest people that I've ever been able to know have come out of the Bitcoin field of work. It is because we all want the same thing. We all want these people to stop lying to us. We all want what's good for us. We know we're in a bad situation. It needs to fucking stop, and they're just never going to stop. But he's still playing good cop, bad cop. All right, he's saying the truth. He's wrapping bullshit up in the truth, and they do that time and time again. So it's that sympathetic voice when you're being interrogated for murder. That guy that gets you to trust you. You can trust him because he's on your side, right? He doesn't want you to go down. He doesn't want you to hurt. But that's all this dude is. He's the good cop.
And when we talk about smart people being into Bitcoin, is it because they think Bitcoin is like the technology that's going to power the future? Or is it because they're smart enough to realize there are a lot of people who are going to get on the train, feel the FOMO, and buy in? I mean, if you were able to predict that, more power to you. But I don't think the government should be in that business.
Well, I mean, there's no different than people investing in stocks or other illiquid assets. There really isn't. I mean, if people believe...
Hold on a minute. Beneath that stock are companies that sell products that you can... Okay, ready? Let's give you the Hawk Tuah girl example.
Oh, thank God she brings up Hawk Tuah. Now, here's where she's connecting absolute degenerate shitcoinery directly to Bitcoin. Me and you, the listener to this show, we know the difference. Every single talking head is either of two camps. They are so ridiculously ignorant as to what this all is, and yet they still get paid mondo amounts of money to sit there and spew whatever nonsense they think they know. Or the second camp is that they damn well do know exactly the difference, and they're presenting it as actually being in the same tent because they want to use anything they can to discredit. Hawk Tuah girl is a moron, and she's probably going to spend time in jail for this Hawk Tuah coin. And I believe I actually think that she was predated upon. Somebody called her probably from pump.fun, said, hey, we can make a whole bunch of money. We'll spin up a Hawk Tuah coin. It's going to be great. And you're going to get rich. And they're not telling her that what they're doing is, well, fabricating an unregistered security, and the CFTC and the SEC and the DOJ are all going to want a little piece of her ass. But again, this connecting of Bitcoin to things that Bitcoin doesn't do, doesn't facilitate, has absolutely night and day difference between. That connection is being done on purpose. And you're going to see way more of this kind of bullshit happen.
A drunk girl outside a bar who becomes famous for a lewd comment, more power to her, okay? She then launches a coin, is dishonest publicly about action around that coin, the value sinks, and now all these Bitcoin investors want this money. If that isn't like peak subprime.
Peak subprime. That's what we're ending on today. All right, so that's the end of the clips. Now, peak subprime, she said that for a reason. She wants to connect the absolute disaster that the United States government, in conjunction with massive United States and European banks, caused. But this time it's going to be Bitcoin. It's going to be Bitcoin's fault, and it's going to be the Republicans' fault. The narrative is being fashioned right before your eyes. It's going to continue. It's going to get worse. This is the new narrative for the next 4 years. And if the Bitcoin bill actually passes, okay, it's going to be the narrative until that bill goes up for a vote. If the bill is denied, they're going to have to come up with a new narrative. But if that bill passes and it becomes actual law, on the day that the United States government buys their first Bitcoin with actual cash, they will cement in absolutely 100% 4 years of this narrative from mainstream media. So what can you do about it? Nothing, except to let them die. I gave you Chris Hayes, Cenk Younger from the Young Turks, whoever these morons on this particular show was. They're all going away. The staffing, the firestorm that is running through CNN, NBC, MSNBC, all of them, they're all cutting staff. They cannot afford these people anymore. They are all going down. Nobody's listening to CNN. And now that the administration has changed, the people that were giving massive amounts of cash like Pfizer, they're going to start pulling back on their advertising because it's not going to do them any good anymore to have their narrative basically bought and paid for, because that's what was going on. Pfizer and Merck and GlaxoSmithKline, they were basically saying, we will pay you, NBC, CBS, ABC, MSNBC, CNN, and all the rest of them. We'll pay you so much money that you can staff your shit forever. And you guys are going to get massive bonuses. But you've got to say exactly what we tell you to say about these products. So the ethics behind all this was completely destroyed. But now that it's a real possibility that they're going to have almost no power left, ladies and gentlemen, they're not going to be having that advertising budget anymore. Rachel Maddow is probably scared to death that Elon Musk might actually buy MSNBC, because if he does, she's one of the first people to go, as well as Chris Hayes, right behind her ass. These people get paid millions of dollars to sit there and spew this fucking drivel. And that's going to come to an end. So this is, in my opinion, the last gasp of what we know as the mainstream media. Essentially, it's sort of like Gandalf, who will smote his ruin upon the mountainside. This behemoth, this juggernaut, is smoldering right in front of us and is just going to burst into flame at any second. I cannot wait. But we were talking about Ukraine. I mentioned Ukraine 5, maybe 6 times because they, keep talking about this $100 billion, but they certainly didn't care about the all the money of hardworking Americans that were sent over to help fund the pension funds of people in Ukraine. We certainly didn't care about that, right? Well, now there's a Ukraine bill that seeks to legalize crypto by early 2025 with securities-based taxation model. Okay, this should be fun, considering that isn't crypto evil? And don't we love Ukraine? But Ukraine is going to make crypto legal. These people have a lot of narratives to try to connect, and it's not going to help them out. By the way, this is written by Brian McGleenan out of The Block. A bill to legalize cryptocurrencies in Ukraine by the first quarter of next year may be in the works, with a draft bill being prepared by a preliminary or parliamentary working group in collaboration with the National Bank, and you guessed it, the International Monetary Fund, or the IMF, reported Ukrainska Pravda. Danilo Hermatazev, head of the Ukrainian Parliament's Committee on Finance, Tax, and Customs Policy, confirmed that the draft law is nearly ready for its first reading. He expressed optimism that the legislation would be approved by early 2025. Quote, "We aim to pass this law and legalize cryptocurrency in the first quarter." Well, the bill would not only pave the way for cryptocurrency legislation, but also establish that digital assets will be subject to taxation. Similar to securities, profits would be taxed when cryptocurrencies are converted into fiat currency. Quote, "In consultations with European experts in the IMF, we are taking a very cautious approach to using cryptocurrencies for tax exemptions, as it could potentially facilitate tax evasion in traditional markets." End quote. In November of 2023, Ukraine's parliament received a draft law outlining the taxation of virtual asset transactions, marking a critical step toward the full legalization of cryptocurrencies in that country. The upcoming legislation aims to establish clear regulatory guidelines for exchanges, traders, and investors, creating a more stable and secure framework for Ukraine's digital asset sector. Ukrainian public officials have a notable history of cryptocurrency ownership, because in 2021, various civil servants reported owning holdings of 46,000 Bitcoin, valued at $2.7 billion at the time, and that was in 2021. Notably, the 19-year-old son of 2 national parliament members, himself a local politician, reported owning $24.6 million worth of Monero. Okay, so Ukraine, good. All right, we can send them hundreds of billions of dollars, but the crypto is just evil. Except that the very country that has been laundering money for decades is now going to make crypto legal and tax it. That doesn't wash with the narrative that we have in the United States. We can't sit there and say we stand with Ukraine, we hate Bitcoin, yet Ukraine is going to get into Bitcoin. All right, so that narrative doesn't work. Again, I don't think we really have anything to worry about from these people. I think you're going to see a massive turnover in mainstream media names and faces here in the next 4 years. But Helen Partz says that Coinbase is preparing to delist Tether's USDT stablecoin in Europe. So if you're a European listener and you're using Tether, Coinbase is going to delist it because of MiCA compliance. And this is out of Cointelegraph. Let's see if there's anything in here. Cryptocurrency exchanges in Europe are preparing to delist locally non-compliant stablecoins as European crypto regulations near an enforcement deadline. Coinbase Europe, Coinbase Germany, and Coinbase Custody International, all three, will delist USDT and 5 other stablecoins on December the 13th. Guys, that's tomorrow. Quote, based on the latest information, we currently expect that we will have to restrict services for the following assets: USDT, PAX, PYUSD, GUSD, GYEN, and DAI, Coinbase said, referring to the coins as assets restricted by Europe's markets in crypto asset regulation. Coinbase will continue supporting USD coin, otherwise known as USDC, and the euro-pegged EURC stablecoin jointly operated by Coinbase and the United States crypto company Circle. So Circle's okay in Europe. They're compliant apparently, but USDT, which is arguably the largest stablecoin issuer out there, no, can't have that. I kind of wonder why. Because Tether's been around a lot longer than Circle Coin. So I figure there's some chicanery and some brinksmanship going on, but we've got numbers to run. CNBC futures and commodities. Oil, West Texas Intermediate is up 0.16% to $70.40 a barrel. Brent North Sea up a quarter to 73.71. And natural gas continuing its climb. It's up 5.15% to $3.55 per thousand cubic feet. I think maybe that means that winter is going to be really bad this year. I don't know. But gasoline is basically moving sideways at $1.98 a gallon. Gold and the rest of its brethren are not having a good day. Somebody check on Peter Schiff, please. Gold down 1.69% to $2,710. Silver is down over 4 points. Platinum is down 1.08%. Copper down a half. Palladium down just over 2 points. Ag is not looking good in the futures market either. Only 2 are in the green on my list, and chocolate is the biggest winner, 2% to the upside. Biggest loser today is going to be sugar, 1.69% to the downside. And I got live cattle unchanged. Lean hogs up, well, no, they're just moving sideways, 0.09, and feeder cattle is down 0.09, so essentially no change there. The Dow is down 0.25 point. The S&P is down 0.17%. NASDAQ is also down 0.25 point, and the S&P Mini is down 0.14. Well, what the hell's going on with Bitcoin? Oh, it seems to be fine. $101,580 is just a hair over a $2 trillion market cap, and now we can get 37.8 ounces of the shiny metal rocks with our one Bitcoin, of which there are 19,794,876.84 of, and average fees per block have risen to 0.15 BTC taken in fees on average on a per block basis, and there are 109 blocks carrying 280,000 unconfirmed transactions waiting to clear at high priority rates of 8 Satoshis per VByte, so we're back down into single digits. Low priority is going to get you in at 7, and the hash rate looks to be 759.1 exahashes per second on a 1-week rolling average. And from Goldman Sachs, which was yesterday's Bitcoin and episode, I got God's Death giving me 537 sats. Thank you, my friend. He says, thank you, sir. No, thank you. And I got Pies de Pleb, or actually now it's just Pies, with 100 sats, says, thank you, sir. No, thank you. And man, wow, that's it. That's all. That's all. Oh man, I don't know. I wanted to hear more from y'all. Of course, I want your Satoshis too, but I actually like reading y'all's comments. So, value for value is the way this goes. It's the way that this show stays on. So, if you think that what I've done is valuable and you want to give me your value back, I don't have to have advertisers. I don't get a paycheck from, like any of the good Bitcoin companies that I think are out there, because I really want value for value to take off, because it not just saves people like me and you, it saves all manner of artists and musicians and playwrights and authors. I mean, there's no reason to have your hard work have a lot of money taken off the top of it because they have a marketing machine. Like the authors go into like Penguin Books or something like that. People making movies having to go to Sony Films, or, artists having to go to Sony BMI to, have their music recorded as an album, right? If we can get value for value to actually work, then we fix a whole bunch more shit. And we fix it. We use Bitcoin to help as a tool to fix it, but we actually do the fixing ourselves. So if you think what I've done today is of value, then please, please, please consider sending your value back to me. And that's the weather report. Welcome to part 2 of the news you can use. CoinDesk is having some serious issues with its website. Has anybody else noticed this? Is this just me? Because honestly, I can't even get a headline out of this story. Right? I mean, it's like when I go to their front page, the formatting is completely blown out. There's no headline. I've got the text of the article that I want to read, but I mean, this is ridiculous. It doesn't even have a headline. Oh my God. Okay, you know what? Hold on for a second. Let me figure it out. All right, here we go. Bitcoin, the largest cryptocurrency by market cap, is fighting a big milestone to sustain a $2 trillion market cap and $100,000 price. Once Bitcoin has conclusively overcome these milestones, there may be clear skies ahead. Bitcoin has rallied over $30,000 since Trump won the U.S. election in November, which coincided with many coins leaving exchanges. But primarily, Bitcoin is leaving exchanges in large chunks. Oh, there's the headline. Bitcoin is leaving exchanges in batches of $10 million or more, according to Van Straten. And it's because they put somehow or another, this formatting has put the headline on the bottom of the article. I don't know somebody please tell me if is this just me or is Coinbase just jacked up for other people? And continuing, Glassnode data shows that transactions that are worth more than $10 million of Bitcoin have been leaving exchanges at a rapid rate, which signals aggressive buying from an institutional level. Many of these transactions appear to be coming from the exchange Coinbase, which is why we have noticed a Coinbase premium in recent weeks. As of yesterday, almost 12,500 BTC, or $1.3 billion, left exchanges, with roughly half of this amount leaving Coinbase, according to Glassnode. And since the U.S. election, Glassnode data reported that roughly 200,000 BTC have left exchanges, which leaves roughly 2.8 million BTC on exchanges, which is the lowest amount in the past 7 years. Right, so we get these cycles. It happens. We definitely get these cycles where we see the good thing happen. Bitcoin being completely torn away from exchanges. And then we go rah, and then we don't look and see that some of the Bitcoin a few months later goes back to the exchanges, and that's where chicanery starts to occur. But for right now, we're in a good place with people taking possession of their own Bitcoin. And then we have VanEck, which is disappointing me solidly today. From Decrypt, written by Andrei Bagansky, VanEck-backed Superform launches a DeFi product for, quote, intelligent USDC yield. Now, the second that I said yield is exactly when you should go, no, I'm not buying, I'm not having any part of this. Find out why. This is an FAFO issue. Crypto yield marketplace Superform announced on Wednesday the launch of Super USDC, because if your USDC isn't enough, well, then get Super USDC, I suppose, a product build as a set and forget opportunity for earning high yield on Circle stablecoin. High yield, people. Since its launch in early access this year, the platform has functioned as a decentralized marketplace for yield protocols. Projects can list vaults on Superform, which are linked to yield opportunities on Ethereum, as well as dedicated scaling solutions like Arbitrum and Base. Oh, God, it's just getting all into the bullshit. Super USDC offers DeFi users automated, non-custodial yield management. Oh my God, my yield is so high, I need management for my fucking yield. And is the first offering in Superform's line of Super Vault products, according to a statement. Oh God, VanEck, how far are we going to fall? Superform's lab co-founder and CEO Virkam Arun told Decrypt that the move comes after 100,000 digital wallets interacted with the platform. Super Vaults is what we created in response to what was the most in-demand feature from users. Yeah, yield, because they don't understand where it comes from. Arun explained that Super Vault automatically allocates digital assets to create opportunities, utilizing an algorithm optimized on the platform's data. He mentioned that with 768 vaults currently on Superform, the product was designed in response to user requests for a more curated selection. Selection of what? Different forms of yield, all of which are fucking fake? I don't know. Alongside SuperVault's release, Superform Labs announced that it had raised $3 million in strategic funding led by VanEck Ventures, and it represents the $30 million fund's first investment since the global asset manager unveiled the initiative back in October. While Superform isn't available to U.S. residents, yeah, no shit, there is bipartisan hope that lawmakers will soon pass a federal framework for stablecoins. With regulatory shifts under the president-elect expected to bolster DeFi too, Arun said that providing an influx with stablecoins with the best possible source of yield could become the next gold rush on chain. Can you hear it? Can you sense the bullshit? And why VanEck has touched this project with a 10-foot pole, much less $30 million, makes me think that all of the people at VanEck either A, don't know what the hell this is and don't care, or B, very well know what it is, do care, but don't care about you. Because this shit is just another FTX waiting to happen. However, when it does happen, it's not going to be the size of FTX, but it's just the same bullshit. Where does the yield come from? That's the only question that you need to actually ask yourself. Where does the yield come from? And in this case, what yield products? A curated list of yield products that rotate around your vault by an algorithm? Well, that sounds like an algorithmic stablecoin. And we go right back to everything that happened with FTX and Alameda and BlockFi and 2021 and all of that. It's just the same shit packaged differently, and they were able to squirrel away $30 million of VanEck customer money. Well, whatever. I'm done with that story because the rest of it has got, if it's anywhere close to the amount of bullshit that I just read, we don't need any more of it. But this one's interesting. In Kenya, Kenyan firefighters have now added Bitcoin to their balance sheet. This is from Atlas 21, and I saw a lot of talk about this on Nostr yesterday. The Kenya National Fire Brigades Association has become one of the first unions in the country to establish a Bitcoin reserve. Interesting. The announcement was made during the Africa Bitcoin Conference on December the 11th. That's why I was hearing all about it yesterday. Now, the initiative was made possible thanks to a donation facilitated by Proof of Workforce, a U.S.-based nonprofit organization dedicated to promoting Bitcoin adoption among unions and workers. The Bitcoin Fund will be used to strengthen Kenya's firefighting service, a country with only 1,400 firefighters for a population of 56 million people. 1,400 fire people, right? Firefighters. We used to call them firemen before we get in trouble for that shit. 1,400 firefighters for a population of 56 million people. If we take that into comparison with a city like Toronto, they have 3,200 firefighters for a measly 3 million residents. Wow, my God. Magdalena Granowska, a consultant for Proof of Workforce, explained that the goal of the program is to support KENFIBA in its emergency response efforts, member management, and recruitment by incorporating Bitcoin into its budget. Although it was initially believed that they were the first union on the continent to adopt Bitcoin, this claim was contested by user James Altador, who pointed out that the group of university lecturers in Nigeria, the Academic Staff Union of Universities, had already established a Bitcoin reserve, and I heard absolutely nothing about Nigeria's Academic Staff Union of Universities going into Bitcoin. We are now at the point, ladies and gentlemen, where people are getting into Bitcoin at a rate that we cannot keep up with. So, wow, man, progressive Democrats are going to be some of the poorest people on the face of the planet. I feel bad for Cenk, I really do. And he also doesn't look very healthy lately. I'm kind of worried about him, but oh well. Bitcoin Keeper version 1.3.0 has been released. Inheritance keys, miniscript support, and remote sharing. Bitcoin Keeper is an open source mobile multi-sig Bitcoin wallet with inheritance features. Oh my. This version introduces the inheritance key vault, including securing inheritance keys with miniscript, the ability to convert any key into an inheritance key, sharing and signing keys remotely with any device, additional subscription tier options with better pricing, and accompanying UI UX improvements. Keeper's inheritance key vault enhances the standard multi-sig setup with an additional inheritance key that activates after a user-defined period of inactivity. This on-chain, quote, dead man switch facilitates easier recovery and inheritance of funds without relinquishing control or depending upon third parties. Quote, for example, the user can create a 2 of 3 multi-sig vault and add a family member as a fourth inheritance key, setting the activation time for that key to 1 year from today. For the first year, the vault will be a normal 2 of 3 multi-sig. Then after that year, the vault becomes a 2 of 4 multi-sig with the inheritance key acting as another valid signer, explained Ben Kaufman, lead developer of the project. Users can extend the activation time at any point during the year through a process called revaulting. This allows them to postpone the inheritance key activation, serving as regular confirmations that the owner is alive and well and that the inheritance key is not needed yet. The option is available for Keeper's Diamond Hands tier subscribers. Notably, the subscription currently comes at a 50% discount, quote, at launch. Hardware device integration is still limited, and we expect to complete the integration work for all miniscript supporting signers in the next few weeks. So there you go. Let's talk about that a little bit, because this is something that I've been thinking about quite a bit. Is how do you pass on your Bitcoin when you die? I mean, you could leave it with some lawyers, and that's generally what we do with our wills and trusts and whatnot like that. But we're entering a new world, and we might as well look at this new world with a completely new, fresh set of eyes. I don't want my children to inherit my Bitcoin. I want them to take control of the Bitcoin. There's a difference. One might possibly incur an inheritance tax. I want that Bitcoin held by a company, not me, not my children. When I die, I want my children to become officers of the company. They don't own the company. They just become officers of the company, thereby, or at least something like that, something approaching that, because I know it can't quite be exactly that, but I don't want them being able to be tagged for whatever assets are in the company. If I just say, now you own the company and all of its assets now, you own. I want it to be more of a, well, they don't really own it. They control what happens to it, but they don't really necessarily own it. And an inheritance feature that these guys over here at Bitcoin Keeper have done with this inheritance key is allow a mechanism for that type of of logic to be instilled with Bitcoin, right? So I've already got all the company structures that I would ever need to be able to figure out how to do what I just said. But Bitcoin, you know, I mean, it's like, well, how's that work? Well, if I've got 3 kids and they all have to vote on whether or not they take a distribution from the company for a year, or like during a quarter, or on a monthly basis, off of profits that the company is actually making, because the way that we've kind of set these companies up is to always have assets that continuously make income. Yes, there are equities involved. Yes, there's real estate involved. And yes, you will go, why don't you just sell it all for Bitcoin? Well, honey, because I got 2 other partners and they don't believe in it as much as I do. And I have to work with that because I am the minority vote. And that's the way the law works. That's the way the legal structure works. However, that I have been able to get that company to buy Bitcoin, right? We have Bitcoin on the balance sheet. How, instead of having the legal structure be used to guide my children on whether or not they agree to spend the Bitcoin, either convert it into fiat, part of it into fiat for something, or maybe they want to use it to buy another asset, and that asset would actually be, getting an income, then they could actually just vote simply by signing the keys. That's all they'd have to do. So inheritance goes, this feature can be used for a lot more than just simple inheritance. Voting on how to spend actual Bitcoin simply by signing the key, that's always been around. But we need to start thinking about how these tools can be leveraged in our favor, right? So moving on, a Bitcoin ATM operator named Byte Federal has reported that a data breach that affected 58,000 users. This is a U.S.-based Bitcoin ATM operator. 58,000 customers. That's a damn shame. In a filing with Maine, this is the state of Maine, Maine's Attorney General, Byte Federal disclosed that hackers potentially accessed the personal data of 58,000 customers. Quote, customers' personal information that was the subject to the attempt of unauthorized access includes name, birthday, address, phone number, email address, government-issued ID, social security number, transaction activity, and photographs. And all of that was to comply with this bullshit KYC, AML garbage that the Bank Secrecy Act has foisted upon us and got worse with the Patriot Act. Byte Federal implements a rigorous AML KYC program, there we go, ensuring that it is compliant with the Bank Secrecy Act and anti-money laundering compliance program. The breach occurred on September the 30th and was discovered by Byte Federal on November the 18th. Wow, over 2 full weeks go by. God. According to the company, hackers exploited a vulnerability in third-party software, specifically a bug in the GitLab developer platform. Quote, we have no evidence at this time that any of your personal information was actually compromised or misused in any manner. No user funds or assets were compromised, the announcement added. The company operates over 1,300 Bitcoin ATMs across the United States. All right, so apparently there was a vulnerability, but they don't know if it was actually accessed. But if it was accessed, name, birthday, address, phone number, email address, your government-issued ID, your social security number, and all your transaction activity plus your photogenic picture is now compromised. That's if they actually used it. So it looks to me like they don't really know. But still, AML, KYC, one of the worst things, and it has nothing to do with catching criminals. It doesn't work to catch criminals. It works to catch you. It works to catch you. Okay, so that's the end of the articles for the day. I want to just kind of like go back to what we did at the first of the show and reiterate that they got nothing else to talk about at this point, because they already went through 8 years of hating on Trump. They went through 4 years when he was actually in office, and then they went through another 4 years blaming him for everything after he was in office. And here they got 4 more years of Trump that they're looking square in the face of. I don't think they got anything left. They got to pivot, so they're going to pick on Bitcoin. You watch, man. It's going to get ugly. You thought the skull of death in the truck by that sculptor with the whole, nuclear cooling towers on top of it was bad. You think the who was it? Greenpeace USA coming out against Bitcoin was bad. You think all the 487 obituaries that buried Bitcoin before it actually died, and it's still not dead, it's chilling out at $101,505. You think that's bad? Dude, you ain't seen shit. We have not seen anything. But the sense that I get from Chris Hayes, Cenk Younger, and whatever that group of idiots were at the very last part, if looking at what they're saying and the vehemence in which they say it is any indication at all, it's going to be a wild ride. But what you're eventually going to see is all these people rotated out of their positions and replaced with, you're going to see a complete replacement of mainstream media. That doesn't mean that it's going to be good. It could still suck. It probably will still suck. So there's two things here. You're going to watch them die. They're going to go down on the We Hate Bitcoin ship when they die. They're going to be completely replaced. Those replacements will probably not be, good at all. And your fifth one, you've got to depend on independence. Not like Declaration of Independence. I mean, independent journalists, independent podcasters, people that just don't have any connection with having to say what GlaxoSmithKline wants them to say, because the people that give them their paycheck depend on GlaxoSmithKline to give them a paycheck, and they are not going to say anything bad about any product of the people that give them the paycheck, right? This is where value for value is going to shine. It's not just going to be music with people like Man Like Quex, who's over there on Wavelake, and Fountain. It's not going to be, independent movie makers. They'll be included. But I think where we're really going to see value for value start shining very brightly, very quickly, is as we see these people that I gave examples of at the head of the show start going down with the We Hate Bitcoin ship, because Bitcoin's not going to die. It's just not. But these people, I kind of feel bad for them at this point. So just be careful. Support your independent people in Bitcoin, your independent people in art, your independent people in music, and I'll see you on the other side.
This has been Bitcoin and I'm your host, David Bennett. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and hope to see you again real soon. Have a great day.